So hello, my name is Lon Safko, and I'm the author of the Social Media Bible, published by John Wiley & Sons, the most comprehensive book ever written on the subject of social media. And I'm really excited about today. We're here with Gary Thuerk, the father of internet marketing and creator of the world's first spam email message. How do you like that? How cool is that? And we'll be speaking about email marketing, social media, and of course, we'll be talking about spam. So Gary, it's awesome to have you here today. Let's get started. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are, your background, and your claim to fame?
Well, I'm best known for sending the first email spam back in May of 1978. Okay?
Wow.
However, my background goes into when I was in the Navy, and I was a officer and I was a programmer and analyst. So I grew up on control data computers, first computers, and got a lot of experience there, and that pretty much gave me feet of clay along the way so that I could understand what was going on in the industry, and I've been in the industry and around its peripheral ever since.
So cool. So you said in 1978 you had this idea, I read, about telling people about your new computers, and that there was a new computer out and it was for sale and it was a good price and more powerful, and you had a list of about 398 clients. Well, I'm going to let you tell the story. So what did you do?
Well, our goal was to introduce the new DEC System 20 that supported packet switching, i.e. the ARPANET, which was in the internet. Okay, and I wanted to reach the people on the West Coast who were on the ARPANET, and they were hard to reach. I had a few contacts, but you couldn't get them on the phone because the phone was in an office someplace. They weren't there. You couldn't reach them in the computer labs where they were most of the time. So we were talking about that. We came up with the idea of, hey, we'll send them emails. So we actually took there was an email directory. You want to call it a phone book if you want. Okay, it had phone numbers in it. It was about this thick, and there were about 2,600 people with email addresses back then, and I took that and I took a yellow marker, and I went through and I picked up a whole bunch from, let's do Rand Corporation, let's do UCLA, let's do USC, let's do all these different places, and we invited them to come to 2 demos that we were setting up for the DEC System 20 so they could see that it was working. So we took a DEC System 2020, which is a very small system, like the size of a small, short, 2-cabinet file cabinet, 2-drawer file cabinet, and
which at the time that was small, not compared to today's numbers.
That's right, small then, not by today's standard. That's right. And we took it out, we set it up. We did one demo in Southern California, and then we did the other one up there in Redwood in Silicon Valley. It went very well, and it was well received. At each place, we had the ARPANET users who got online, and what we did is we had a dial-up phone from the system back to the system in Marlborough, Massachusetts, outside of Boston. And from there, they went onto the ARPANET and into their own system back in California. And they were able to try the different functions and things they needed to see that it was all there.
Wow, so that was pretty interactive, especially for 1978.
Oh yeah, these people lived in an interactive world. We had terminals, we didn't have PCs, but it was still an interactive environment.
Okay, so by sending that message out to that list of yellow highlighted clients, what actually did you do?
Pardon?
You changed history by sending that first message.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I'm the first person that did that. It was only a couple days later before they all started complaining.
And they haven't stopped since.
That's right.
So actually what had happened was just by sending that message, because it was a commercial message, you're the father, you invented email marketing, internet marketing.
That's true. Yeah, the first marketing over the internet, ARPANET, packet switching capabilities.
Okay, so and as a result of that, I also have to use this 4-letter word that we're all talking about even today, which is called spam.
Yes. Hey, that comes from the Monty Python show.
Oh, is that where it came from?
Yes.
That's funny because I referenced that, the spam, spam, spam. Do you want spam with your spam?
That's it. Yes. Yeah.
And for those in the audience, or for listeners who don't really understand what spam is, I mean, you get spam, but the actual definition of spam, according to the 2004 CAN-SPAM Act, is called an unsolicited commercial email message. It's an unsolicited commercial email message. So what happened in 1978, you sent out close to 400 unsolicited commercial email messages.
Correct. Yeah, and people don't want to get confused with this.
That's excellent. Yeah, the Hormel family will never live that down.
Yeah, and they have it copyrighted for capital letters. So you're not allowed to use email spam in any form in capital letters.
That's great. I'm glad you got a can of spam there. And I saw one of your photographs where you're holding up an I love spam bumper sticker. I think that's great too.
I got that from one of the guys I worked with.
That's totally
and he
awesome.
was a great spam guy, and he had more than one, or he wouldn't have given it to me.
That's really great. I just want to take a second just also to read some statistics about spam that I found. Last year, 200 billion spam emails were sent every day, if you can imagine that number. 90% of spam was English, and about a year ago, 96% of spam started becoming more international. 88% of all spam is sent from what's called botnets, and those are basically infected PCs. That's this malware that we get all the time. 80% of all the emails are delivered to North America and Europe, and they're only sent by about 100 spam gangs, which I was kind of surprised, which pretty much is the Ukraine, Russia, Estonia, Hong Kong, India, and the United States. I thought that was kind of amazing. And it says that 1 out of every 12,500,000 spam emails actually converts to a sale. But when you think about the number of spam messages that are sent out on a daily basis, 200 billion, you're still talking about a really high percentage and an opportunity to make a lot of money. So the average conversion rate on a spam message is 2.9%. And believe it or not, 2/3 of all spam is related to pharmaceuticals, which I was kind of surprised to see. So since 1978, we've come a really long way.
Yes. That's true, and it took a long time after I did it before it really picked up. Okay, you have to pull in the use of the PC, the availability of the internet, the World Wide Web part of it, and that all came together, and that's when the volume of spam really started going up. The one reason underlining it, I believe, is that why people do it and they continue to do it is it doesn't cost them any money. It costs them time and resources, but not money, and that's why they do it. And I mean, it's spread to all these different elements now. I mean, it has been coming to cell phones and it's coming to smartphones and all of that, and it's going to spread to those areas because they can reach more people. I actually met one of the spam kings, or king of spam, when they were making the movie Spam the documentary, and I got a little bit in the middle of that, and I spent a day with those guys explaining technology to them. And that evening we met one of the guys, and he doesn't show up because his lawyer wouldn't let him show up in there, but he's got a regular business on it, and he knows where the money is, and he makes money out of it. And every once in a while, I hear about him in one of the technical newspapers, is that he went back to his old ways of blasting away, and someone came after him again. So he's got a full-time lawyer on his staff.
Well, they can afford it because they're actually making money at spamming us all the time. And one of the things that with the 2004 CAN-SPAM Act, everybody asked me, well, if the government passed a law stopping spam, why the heck do we still get so many of them? And of course, as you know, the answer is that January 1st in 2004, everybody moved their servers offshore, and we can't touch them.
Yeah, and they keep moving around. The thing that really helped those people was when they started using the robots. Okay. By infecting other people's PCs, because when they were sending them from their own servers, they could be spotted and shut down quickly. So that's where they developed these other tactics.
Right.
And they just keep ahead of the general technology of the people trying to stop them.
Yeah, it's a cat and mouse game. It's always just keeping one step ahead. And you made a really good point a minute ago when you said that we've seen spam move. I mean, we've seen it move to the fax machines, which, because it was inexpensive, with mass dialers and automatic dialers, but we did get a lot of protect us from that. And of course, email, we're still fighting that every single day at every level possible. But we're also starting to see that in LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all of the different social networks, and as you said earlier, on mobile phones. It's getting to be a problem. So do you think that that's a trend that's going to continue to grow?
Oh, absolutely. That's why we have iSpam and T-Spam and G-Spam, Twitter spam, and it's going to be in all of those areas. Okay, the spam part is not as bad as all the different scams and the malware in general, and that's the worst part. Is of course the malware, and people really, the average person doesn't make a differentiation. They just call it all spam.
Yeah.
In the industry, we make differentiations all the time, okay. But so we know what we're dealing with.
Well, I do email marketing. I think it's the most effective. As you and I have discussed, I always believe that email is the original social media, and I love email marketing because it gives us an opportunity to have two-way communication with people that we have a relationship with. And what's really weird is that every time I send out a message, I'll get a small percent of people that actually report me as spam, even though they've signed up for my email list.
They didn't like your message.
Yeah. I only give things away for free, but it's like that commercial, who doesn't want something for free? And the kid throws the Cheerios at him.
Yeah, that's right.
Another thing I thought was interesting in one of our initial conversations, when you introduce yourself first as the father of email marketing, and eventually the conversation leads to spam, that people actually are offended because they believe that you were responsible for it. That just, I find that amazing.
Oh, yeah, they act like I sent them all their spam. So I get a little bit of that all the time. Someone wants to, shouldn't we beat them up or something? I mean, you hear that. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
That's just absolutely crazy. After all these years, especially. Now, I also read something that the day that you had sent your email message, your unsolicited commercial email message, the University of Utah was less than happy about the whole thing.
Oh, that's right. You know, I talked to that guy.
Yeah.
And he was very unhappy. Well, the details on that was we sent three there. I don't remember how many names there were, but I picked 3 names off the directory, and they had an old DEC system KA-10, and it only had a couple disk drives on it. It probably had full memory, but I mean, 200 gigabytes each or megabytes each was all they had on those drives.
Wow.
And what happened is, if you've seen my spam, you realize that only half of the to list made it in the to-do, and the rest went into the body. So the email came overnight, it went in the disk, he got 3 copies of it, and used up all his extra space. So when he went to use the system, it wouldn't let him.
Oh, no.
So he had to go in and find out what it was, and while he had those 3 active addresses, the 2 people were already gone.
Oh, no.
And if he had shut those down, he wouldn't have gotten 3 copies. So
it was kind of his own fault.
Yeah, it was partially his own fault. And that's what the people in the ARPA community were upset about, was not that they were getting this information from me, but that we didn't make a distribution list up, and we were sending it with everybody's name and address in there.
Okay.
If you look through that list, you'll find some very interesting names and locations in there.
Well, tell me what you can about that.
Well, you'll go through and you'll see USC, you'll see ISI, SRI, Stanford Research Institute, Stanford University. Those are the type of names, UCLA.
Kind of think tanks?
Research labs and think tanks. RAND was on there, the think tank. Oh, by the way, I got a very nice letter from one of the guys at RAND Corporation. He put it very nicely that I was a bad boy and I shouldn't be doing this because I was jeopardizing all of their positions.
Yeah, right.
I preferred the email from the guy at MIT, who wasn't on the list, by the way, and it was sent, that was sent around. People sent around to other people to share the information. And he got it from one of his friends, and he says, "Oh, I got this, I'm so mad." And he read, "Hey, this is great. I don't get good information like this in my email very often." He said, "I'm getting, come to so-and-so's party or birthday or people he doesn't know in the facility." And that was over the technology group at MIT, and said it was good to get something useful. But the other guy said, "No, I'm complaining about him not having a distribution list, having all the names on there." He says, "Well, oh yeah, that we should complain about that." But,
yeah, well, that was just a
he
tactic.
overlooked that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So even back then in 1978, you had email forwarding.
Yes. Oh yeah. And back that was the most of the traffic. There were really only two initial applications. They were trying a lot of different things, but email and file transfer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, file transfer.
Just like now you could use.
Yeah.
Because back then you couldn't say, "Oh, I'll attach this to my email and send it to you." It didn't work. There was no such thing.
Oh, really?
Simple email protocol was basically text. There were no attachments or graphics or anything else.
So how did you transfer files? Was that like a separate routine?
You would add, yes. Yeah, you would go for next routine. You had to have the name of the file and access permitted, and you would go from your server to their server and read it and copy it over the internet. It would be set in multiple packets.
According to today's standards, that sounds really complicated, but back then it was like magic.
That's right. Back then it was considered magic because everybody else was taking copy of floppy disk and carrying the floppy sneaker net, as they called it.
Sneaker net. I never heard that one before.
Yeah, floppy disk to floppy disk. Yeah.
Tell me, the listeners and me, a little bit about your association with ARPANET and what the heck ARPANET is. I mean, wasn't that the foundation, the granddaddy of pretty much everything we're doing digitally now?
Yes, it's pretty much what we accept. The ARPANET was the first working functional packet switching network, and that's what we use today. And think of it as an envelope, okay, a packet just like an envelope with a to on it and a from on it and a message inside or a file inside. And when you had something large, you would have multiples of these, 1 of 5, 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5, 5 of 5, okay, that would go down. And even if they follow different paths across the country from one end to the other, they were reassembled in the server and presented you all back together. So that was a really big move.
And that's kind of the beauty of it, wasn't it? I mean, to be able to send it through this net, through all different types of switches all over the country and have it break up, but eventually at its destination be reassembled into a comprehensive message.
Yep, and that was part of the whole architecture, okay, is to be able to do that. And it was done very successfully. And that's just one of the reasons the DARPA, the Advanced Research Project Agency, has such a good reputation. It's not only that, but the way they do things. They get things done. And everything they try isn't a success, but they know why. They're there to test it out, as opposed to let's buy 1,000 airplanes and see if they fly.
So originally, I mean, this was pretty much a spin-off of the Cold War, would you say?
Yeah, well, that's, I think it was Rand Corporation, someone there who put it into a paper that said, we should build a network that functions like this and needs to be built this way so that if one link is broken, you can just, it'll find its way around. And guys with backhoes are still out there tearing up pipes. And you just heard this week about a ship tearing a cable up from the bottom of the ocean, okay? And the thing about it, they were already rerouting from 3 other broken cables all the traffic through that one. So that really isolated an area from one of its major connections.
So, I mean, ARPANET really wasn't as afraid about backhoes and ships connecting with cables. I mean, their fear was us actually sustaining a nuclear attack.
Oh, yeah. And the internet today is like that, but it's got a lot of tentacles out there, and there's no backup, okay? It's big enough and everywhere enough now that it'll survive.
Yeah.
But as you get off of it, we have no way of knowing now, okay? It looks more like a bunch of spider webs pulled together. And if you're at the end of those, that's why you can lose your service.
And a lot of people, including Vince Cerf, is a really strong proponent now of actually kind of rebuilding this 50-year-old technology from the ground up, because we're getting to the point where we're kind of maxing out on the ability to send packets, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of like if you build it, they'll come. You put an expressway in town, and all of a sudden it's full right after it opens.
True.
So the demand is there, and it's not only the number of people, but it's the thing we're using. So instead of there being just some emails and some files going, now we have video streaming, and that really eats up a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, video is just huge.
Yeah, I remember when they were first doing graphics, sending over the internet. This was back at the Air Force, one of the Air Force labs, and they had a protocol for it. We had to develop a protocol for every single one of these different functions.
Wow.
So to give you a simple example of it, you could have the guys running a simulation in the wind tunnels down at Tennessee in the Air Force lab, and the guys up at their lab in Wright-Patterson Air Force Base could watch it.
Really?
For the first time. And it was maybe 30 seconds later. But that was like real time to them.
It's magic.
Nobody could do that. And they could see it, and they could interact. They were talking on the phone at the time, but still. So someday, people will sit right in front of their terminals, and they'll see and talk to somebody on the other end of a terminal. Someplace else.
Yeah, kind of like what we're doing right now.
Right?
It's hard to believe. Jeez. Well, I remember the old faxes. I mean, just getting a page or 2 pages of fax, you would sit and watch that cylinder spin sometimes 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. The way they started faxing the phones, so that was a great scam thing going on too. So that just tells you they're going to go out there and do that to the phones. The market's too big.
Yeah.
Now that you have programmable phones. I like to call them programmable phones. I don't like to call them smartphones. I mean, the smartphones are just as dumb as your PC.
And they're as dumb as a user.
See, so they're all in it together.
Absolutely. Well, here, one of the questions that I have is that, I mean, here's ARPANET and DARPA, and we're talking about Cold War technology, cutting edge. How are you in the middle of all of this? How did you get the opportunity to play in that field?
Well, I went to Digital Equipment Corporation back in 1975, and probably about a year later, or maybe a little less, my vice president was going by in the hall and said that, hey, we used to do a lot of business with DARPA and the ARPA people, and why don't you check into that? They haven't bought any systems in a long time. So we had about probably somewhere between 25, 30 systems in that research community. They had all kinds of computers. It wasn't limited to the DEC System 10s, which I'm talking about, which were the OKAs, 36-bit time-sharing systems.
Is 36 bits a big deal for that time period?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Craze, of course, had 48 bits on his, but 36-bit was a big deal.
He was also a $1 zillion box.
Yes, that's right.
I think it was only the IRS and Department of Defense that could afford the original Craze.
Actually, the first one was for the. Oh no, not the Craze. I was thinking of the first computer that was bought by the Census Bureau.
Oh, Census, yeah.
Yeah, remember the first big Univac Iliac.
Iliac.
So I went. I arranged. I went down, met the people at ARPA, and I met Vince Cerf and Roger Kahn down there, and started working with them. And I pretty much learned that all the action was out at the development labs, not at their headquarters. And I started visiting these people, and they wanted to hear about what we had new and exciting. And after doing that for a while, I came up with the idea that, hey, we ought to make a system to support it. Because if you think about it, what these guys had to do is they had to write their own software to talk over the ARPANET. And they had to build a board for inside, and they had to connect it to these IMPs that were made by BB&N. So, I mean, it was almost custom made. It's like if you bought a PC and you now had to go build a board and build some wires and write the code to talk on the internet. I mean, how many people would do that? So I put together a little summary, and the vice president bought off on it, and then we were on our way. And 9 months later, we had a product to announce to these people, which is what we were doing.
Wow. Did you need like a security clearance to visit any?
Oh, yes. From back in the Navy, I had a security clearance, and it was utilized again, and then they renewed it, and it was expanded back when I worked with them. So I worked with defense, intelligence, aerospace community.
Wow, so that was pretty handy to be able to have that and then go into the private sector and carry that security clearance.
Yes, and I ended up going back and forth, so I was bringing that security clearance within the different markets.
Okay. So during all of this time, you're meeting all these people and you're watching all this technology. What then happened after that? What did you do in your career after that fateful day? I mean, how did that develop?
I continued to do that. That was very successful. After we did that demo, we sold 12, 13 systems.
Wow.
From that exposure of those demos, and it continued on for years. I moved from the Federal Systems Group to the telco group, which took care of AT&T and the other telco companies, because AT&T was going to move into packet switching. And one of the guys they had up there knew me from down in the large computer group and said, listen, we need to hire Thuerk, bring him up here, because he's the only guy who knows about this stuff. So
you went to work for AT&T?
No, I went to work for our telco group, and pretty soon I was roaming around Bell Labs.
Okay, that's up in Jersey?
Yes, yeah. I went to several of the Bell Labs. I went to the big, beautiful headquarters they had in Baskin Ridge. Yeah. Boy, that's something else. That place was really nice.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? And that's where they're doing a lot of telecommunication, microwave studies and towers and satellite. And they actually discovered the Big Bang Theory there.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, they had this gigantic microwave horn. It looked like a siren, except it was as big as the back of a semi-tractor trailer.
I've seen a picture of that.
Yeah. And they kept getting this.
It's hard to believe they had to build that thing to start with.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was gigantic, and they kept getting this background white noise, and they thought it was the amplifiers. Then they thought it was pigeon droppings inside the horn, and they kept filtering it. But then it turned out that it was the white noise actually created when the universe exploded 14 billion years ago.
It's just amazing, yeah, how people, when they're doing this R&D, how they stumble on this stuff. So I ended up working on what was called ACS, Advanced Computer Switch. And what they put together a solution for them based on the new VAXs with EMS cluster, and they wanted 5 systems in there, and from there it just, I mean, we locked that up. I can't tell you how many truckloads and truckloads they bought of our equipment to do that.
Good deal.
Oh yeah, that was very good.
Well, you had the right customers and the right product at the right time. I mean, DEC was cutting edge.
Yeah.
So you were making their lives easier every day.
I enjoyed it. I spent a lot of time in the markets in what you'd call the early adapters and the research development communities. And that's always exciting. It's a lot of fun working in those environments.
Well, yeah, you're in the weeds.
But, there's benefits. I got to fly the F-16 avionics simulator at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base lab one time.
My
They were a customer there, and they wanted a bigger, better system.
How cool.
So, I just worked with our sales guys, and I was out, and I got to see a lot of different things, go a lot of places.
That's exciting. So you continued to work for DEC up until when?
1993, 17 years.
Wow, okay.
And that was the year they got rid of our whole division. Mm-hmm. That was when they were shrinking. They were already started that the year before. And 90% of our group was gone in 11 months.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah. So that's what was going on in the industry, And look at our industry. We're busy putting old processes out of business with the new stuff, and did it to ourselves.
That's true. What did you do in 1993 then?
I started working as an independent.
Oh.
And after that point, I was an independent marketing rep, and I was a consultant. And as part of that, I'd go to work for different, mostly smaller companies,
Okay.
for 6 months, 9 months, year and a half. Those type of things to get them going on projects, or either a project-oriented thing, or getting a new system going, or something.
Okay. What do you do now?
Now I'm a consultant. Gary Thuerk, the consultant, or Father of Spam, the event and speaker and stuff, that type of activities.
Awesome. Do you have a website? Can you tell our listeners if they'd like to contact you for consulting or speaking?
I don't have a website, but I'm on LinkedIn, and they can get to me that way.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. I passed up a website. I figured it would just collect the hate mail. So
Yeah, that and spam. I mean,
that's right.
can you spell your name so that they know how to find you?
Oh, okay. Well, Thuerk. It's T as in Thomas, Huerk. It's Gary, like Gary, Indiana. I was so thrilled when they named that city in Indiana after me.
That's quite an honor.
You
That's
ever
great.
seen Gary, Indiana?
Okay, well, like the city, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us here while we're all sitting here telling stories? Any other experiences?
Yeah, I'm available to have a good time and come out to their sales meetings and their conferences and their technology meetings and that kind of stuff. I enjoy doing that, and there's a lot of people who enjoy meeting me, and we get to talk about the new stuff, and there's people there who want to talk about the old stuff. So.
Well, I've sure enjoyed meeting you, and I really enjoyed this interview. I appreciate you taking all the time to share all of this wisdom with our audience. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lon, and it's quite the thing, all those books you're putting about social media, so people need to pay attention to that and get on board.
Well, I appreciate it, and you are part of the foundation of that entire industry, and it's been a real honor to be able to talk to you here today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. I'd really like to thank Gary Thuerk, the father of internet marketing and the creator of the world's first spam email message, for being here today talking about e-marketing and the history of email. I think that's absolutely awesome. This has been Lon Safko, the author of the Social Media Bible. Be sure to check out other valuable social media tactics, tools, and strategies that can be found on the Social Media Book website at www.thesocialmediabible.com. And for more information about me, Lon Safko, please go over to www.lonsafko.com. And again, thank you, Gary, and thank you everyone else for being here today. Thanks.
Bye.